Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome in to the Season 17 College Football Playoff Committee. We meet once a season, and we got a new task at hand this year: 14-team playoff. We have 11 auto qualifiers, 10 conference champions, and the best independent team, and then 3 at-larges. We'll rank a full top 25 as well. All auto queues are automatically ranked, and all division winners automatically get bowl games. So this is the only talk about the rankings that we do. So if you have a gripe with something, listen to the full VOD to listen why we decided it. This season I did include both the game, and you can also see our RPI tracker as well that we do on the side. So I'll toggle between the two as we change. So first and foremost, let's just get it squared away so you guys know who has to be in the playoff. Notre Dame's independent champ, Ohio, Southern Miss, Hawaii, Coastal Carolina, UTSA are our G5s. Auburn, Iowa, Baylor, Washington, and Georgia Tech are our Power 5 champs. So where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start with who gets the buys? Do you want to start with just rankings? Where do we start? I think the first and foremost, do we decide if Southern Miss is worth a top 2 bid or not?
I feel like it's worth looking into.
I just flipped a coin for myself. I vote we start with the rankings first.
Okay, well, rankings
Works
start with
for
number
me.
1.
Yes, I think Southern Miss, because there's nobody that
Yeah.
can dethrone them right now. Nobody
And their
has
one loss
shown
is to
otherwise.
10-2 Tennessee. Yeah.
1 loss is to Tennessee. Only wins. Remember, we count quality wins. Army.
Yeah, but don't we also count that as a blowout loss? But since it's 2 touchdowns,
I mean, yeah, but on the road in
I thought
Knoxville is, LA
I thought
Tech's
blowout was
decent.
15 plus, no?
Western Kentucky's decent, right? So they kind of have really, when you don't count the 6 and 6s, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 top 25 victories, or not top 25, but quality wins. Their best wins, Army and Western Kentucky, obviously. Now, I think the only other team that you could really threaten them with is Washington, because Georgia Tech 3-loss, Baylor 3-loss, Iowa 3-loss, Auburn 3-loss.
I actually really like Washington here just because I think Washington's schedule is much harder and they have faced way more teams.
So if you
And they
Let's see
avenged their
Washington.
one of their losses as well.
I mean, let's
Yeah.
see Washington.
So they're second there.
They
That's
beat the
second
team
line.
that beat them.
So according
Yeah.
to Rick's RPI system, which is just kind of a general quad system that they use in college basketball, Southern Miss is number 1 technically with the resume rank. As you can see, they're 2-1 versus the top 16 teams. Washington's 2-1, 2-0, 2-1, 3-0. So pretty identical resumes in terms of quad wins, but the opponent win-loss.
Yeah, but look at the opponent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was about to say the opponent win-loss.
I mean, personally, even though that line is a little bit skewed back where we're putting P5s versus G5s, I think in this scenario, I think Washington probably gets the nod above Southern Miss.
They have my vote.
Who was the tier 2 for Washington?
Yeah, who? Yeah, no, it's not Stanford.
Yeah, we can check who they lost to. So that's why we have to kind of go to the game, because I don't have like a quick schedule thing that I can check.
I know they did lose to Stanford regular season.
So they lost
UCLA.
to UCLA, who kind of fell
Which is
off a
another
little
good
bit.
team. But they're good.
Yeah, they're 8-4, so they're not
And then-
horrible.
Wasn't UCLA like a top
But
5 team
you-
at one point?
But they also
They
They were
top 10,
undefeated.
they
6-0.
lost to Stanford, but they avenged the loss in the CCG.
Yeah, I say
They also beat the
And-
living hell out of Oregon. I mean, beat the living hell out of them.
Yeah, they do great. So
And-
I don't know.
To be fair, Florida was also like a top win until they fell off a cliff. So
Yeah.
and Florida also beat Tennessee, so they have a chance to win over the only team Southern Miss lost to. No.
I don't know if we're gonna get into Triple
Yeah, I was gonna
trans.
say
That's a
much.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
that's
gonna say
that's
much.
If we get into
that's elbow deep in the transitives there.
But
Like,
yeah, so just looking at Rick's resume rankers, pretty much the only teams in contention for the first round bye: Southern Miss, Washington, Georgia Tech, and then maybe Iowa. I guess the algorithm really doesn't like Baylor, which I get. They struggled this year in a pretty weak Big 12.
Hey,
I say okay. I give
Georgia
my
Tech
vote.
was in one of the toughest conferences in the country. So if you see this big outlier with they had over half their games, they had 8 games in top 2 tiers versus only 5. I don't know. Is that way enough? But I think Washington's won.
Tech went
1
2
and
and 3
3.
in tier 2 games
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. It's like all 3 of their losses came tier 2. So I think.
So do we
And
give
then Iowa
Southern
also
Miss
went
too?
to. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Washington won, Southern Miss too.
But I mean, to be fair, Tech also has the most tier 1 wins, and they're undefeated against tier 1.
But it's
Yeah,
not like
Iowa
Southern Miss
State-
didn't.
Yeah, only Iowa
But
State has the same amount, but they're not eligible.
Those were okay. Also, keep in mind those weren't pretty losses either for Georgia Tech. That was what one of those was to Texas Tech choking away on game day, getting a pitch off the knee for Chadwick Tomlin. I think I was correct. Yeah.
No,
Yes,
if you
Win your
wanna-
games.
If you want to talk about like hottest team in the country, they're 9-1 over their last 10.
Who is the third team they lost to? I forgot the third team they lost to.
Well, let's check Georgia Tech.
I still don't think there's a team hotter than Washington's defense. That's the hottest team in the country right now.
And the ACC South is probably one of the best divisions in the country. 5 teams above 8 wins.
No, wait. Did they lose to Miami?
So they
Miami.
lost to Florida
They
by
lost
4,
to ECU.
lost to Texas Tech, and then they lost to ECU on game day because of turnovers.
They
So
they also
2
beat SEC
very
champ
bad
Auburn
losses.
too. That okay? I didn't realize that.
So they have the win over Auburn, over Miami on the road. That's big. Florida State on the road. Those are some big wins. Southern Miss,
Auburn.
remember, their best win is Army and Western Kentucky.
Well, I mean, they still have
Yeah, but
really good
Western
wins
Kentucky
too. I
was
mean, they
good.
got Maryland in there, who's an
Yeah.
8-win team.
No, that's
You
what
got
I'm saying.
Clemson at 8 wins.
Like, if you look at
But
this,
can we see Southern Misses again?
like, these guys, they have...
They have 4 good wins, and
I mean,
then
that's 8 games
close, and
against
then a
the top
14-point
40
loss to
teams.
Tennessee. Yeah,
Do you give Georgia Tech number 2 spot? Do you give them a bye, or do you give Southern Miss the bye? They're both
I
option
think you
2.
gotta give
feel like you
Southern
have
Miss.
to give it Southern Miss.
you have to go Southern Miss just because you got to reward not losing your games. You got to reward.
Yeah,
Exactly,
at that
yeah.
point, 9-3 versus 12-1. I don't.
If they beat ECU, yeah, 100% we give it to them. But
Yeah, a 2 loss, yeah, that's completely different. But 3 is just too much for me.
especially
Wait,
when it's
should
like a
we-
10-game win streak.
Yeah, for a first round bye, that's
Why is Georgia Tech's win total not the same? It should be.
Yeah, it should. So it might be more. Hold on. I gotta...
It's 10-3.
Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
10-3.
which like still, so it's 9-3
Let me-
versus 11-1.
Well, no, so now we're not looking at the right data. Hold on, let me...
But even
Okay.
beyond that, if you take
It's
away
still the
Because
one,
losses
I
for
don't
me.
have access.
I don't think UNC is more than a tier 2. I think they might. I think they're a tier 2. So I think it'd be 3-3 tier 2 record. I
mean-
still don't think it's enough to tip the scales in favor.
Yeah,
Here, I think.
Did Clemson win or lose against UNC?
Not
Oh,
do not know that.
my whole thing is I don't think it really matters if you add a win to any of the
No,
columns for
yeah.
Georgia Tech. It's the
Yeah,
losses
so
for me that are
UNC
holding them out.
We're already
UNC
assuming.
is tier 2. Yeah,
Let me
UNC is tier 2.
reload it. Okay, I reloaded it. It's in there now.
Yeah, UNC is tier 2.
It doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, no. Wait.
Yeah,
I think
it's the losses for me that's fucking me up with Georgia Tech jumping Southern
Yeah.
Miss. That's the whole thing for me.
it's not like Southern Miss lost to a bad team either. It was a
Oh,
what,
yeah, it
14
I mean,
didn't change
loss.
anything.
Texas
It
Tech.
just was it was a visual glitch.
Definitely a
So, yeah,
bad
no,
loss
so-
with Texas Tech.
All right, Southern Miss 2. We'll put Georgia Tech 3. Does anyone want to see? Okay, so I mean, do we want Georgia Tech 3? Because now there is no seeding issues. You can put anybody, whoever you want. We just need 3
No, I
at
mean, I
large.
think Georgia Tech plays in the hardest conference
Yeah,
out of
I think
everybody
they.
left. I think that's deserved.
I
Okay.
think they should get
Let's
number 3.
just
Yeah.
compare the schedule to Iowa just to see, because they do have the same record. The Big Ten was also kind of crispy. I don't think you.
Iowa has also lost more stupid games though.
They also
So,
only
okay.
beat UTEP by 13.
But here's
So.
the
Georgia
little
Tech
thing,
beat
though.
the team that Iowa lost to.
If we are putting Iowa State in the playoff, which I don't know if we're going to or not yet, there's that head-to-head. So if they're comparable resumes, like, I mean, at Nebraska, home versus Minnesota, neutral versus Michigan, those are
Yeah,
all
but
very nice
They have
wins.
a
Ohio
they have a
State.
similar opponent, and Georgia Tech beat Maryland while Iowa lost.
No, yeah, I think Georgia Tech's ahead. I would go Georgia Tech. But
Yeah.
my question now is, are we putting Iowa State in? And if so, would they be above Iowa?
I have to see Iowa State's schedule, man.
Yeah,
I
we gotta
don't
see
I don't
Iowa
know that
I know
it's
they
a
lost to Army, Kansas, and Baylor. Those are their 3 losses.
Yeah.
Yeah, they beat
That's-
Baylor before, but they lost conference championship. They beat Oklahoma. They beat Texas Tech. They beat.
So do we just want to
Us.
rank the auto queues first and then fit in the at larges wherever you want to
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's how it
probably.
should be. Yeah,
Okay, let's do that. So
it's a seed and then rank.
Do we want to go down to like 14 and kind of start filling up for a little bit? Because I don't know if I don't know.
Well,
if
then we have to figure out the at large.
There's a lot of good at-large teams. I don't think
Or
that.
should I say the worst auto bid would be a better term. Find out the worst auto
So
bid.
let's just go based on
Oh,
champs
I-
only first. That way we can just have those seeds plug and play as we want, and then we'll figure out if we need to do switches or whatnot. So as we're
I mean, it's probably going to be
because
Ohio,
we're just
right?
ranking 11 teams, they're not going to be 1 through 11, but so we have 1 Washington, 2 Southern Miss, 3 would be Georgia Tech, 4 would be Iowa. So now
It's probably UTSA with the worst.
So now,
No,
it's
Ohio.
Do you guys like this? Do you want to just then go Baylor, and then just look to see if we have, like,
I'm
Notre
still tentative
Dame?
on Iowa at 4.
I
Well,
would
I
be.
don't
I
know,
would
Auburn
think.
over Baylor.
I would think Auburn over Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Auburn over Baylor.
I mean,
of course,
okay,
yeah.
Auburn also lost to Oklahoma State, though. And Oklahoma
Okay,
State was,
but
what,
they
2 and
also
10?
Here's
play
my
a
question:
conference
where
championship,
does
so
the independent have to be ranked at?
in the top 25? They can be 14.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They just have to
Yeah,
be
being
in the playoff.
That's what I was asking, because I just remember that the independents were fucking terrible this year, and
It wasn't
yeah,
great, but they did go on a win streak. So, like, we can
Yeah, it
check
was,
Notre
what,
Dame if we
6
want
games?
to. It was
with a
not
loss to UTSA, shake my
yeah,
head.
I mean, 8-4. They start out 2-4, right? And then they rattled off.
Jeez.
So they have not played anybody amazing. The teams they
Yeah,
played that are good, their best win is Syracuse and Army.
Yikes.
Honestly,
that might actually be.
But the problem is the MAC any
I mean,
better?
yeah, go look at Ohio. They lost to 1-11 Marshall.
Well, I mean, we lost
Well,
like
the
a
MAC,
one-win
yeah, the
team
MAC,
as well.
the team that's supposed to win won, but they did not win any of these games that they needed to.
They lost
LA
to
Tech,
all.
Yeah,
of their
but
good
you also
teams.
have to remember they kept it really
Minnesota,
close
Auburn,
with these teams.
Minnesota.
But their best
But they
win
also
was
lost to
Miami.
1-11 Marshall.
I mean, yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
lost
but you're
to
talking about a
Marshall.
3-point or a 6-point or a 7-point loss to Auburn, which is a huge. I mean, that's a great loss if you want to put it that way. And then a 3-point loss to Minnesota, that's a great loss.
I mean, I think this resume right here is identical to Notre Dame. It's just they got a conference championship win. So I would probably put Ohio slightly over Notre Dame.
I
put
value
them under.
that.
I agree.
Dude, y'all have no idea how bad Marshall was. Like, they are bad.
Yeah,
Like,
I
there's a
know,
reason
but
they're
I
1-11.
think we can tell that Florida.
Notre Dame started 2-4. Like, they should. Neither team won the games they should have, but they somehow found a way. So okay, I think it's pretty obvious to put Iowa or Auburn 5th after Baylor? Do you want it
Yeah.
or
That's
6th?
fine with me.
I mean, do you want to check out Baylor versus Auburn, or are you comfortable with Baylor above Auburn?
I'm comfortable.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, we can always.
fine
We'll
with that.
probably have to go back and check once we do seeding. Okay, so in terms of auto bid teams left, you got Hawaii, you got UTSA, and then Ohio, and then they say Coastal's the worst team.
I doubt that.
So I
No,
think
I
Hawaii and
think so.
UTSA are probably above Ohio and Notre Dame, but let's check. Let's check Hawaii just to make sure. Remember, no quarterback.
Well, I mean, we have to be above Notre Dame no matter
They
what.
lost to
gonna-
Army.
The quarterback problem hasn't really slowed them down, though.
No. So they lost to Army, which is kind of a transitive loss that almost everybody else has a win over. Wyoming, but they avenged it. So it shows Boise right here because I had to go into the files and put Boise.
We can't see it.
We can't see it.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm on Hawaii's schedule. So it says Boise, but that's Wyoming. I had to go into the file to change Wyoming to play in the game. So that's just why it shows that. So they avenged Wyoming, lost to UNLV. I mean, I think that's probably better than Notre Dame and Ohio.
Yeah.
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 All right, let's check out UTSA now.
It's better than me, too.
9-4.
So
So you have the win over Notre
Lost
Dame, so I
Wyoming.
think that should come into play here probably. Terps,
yeah, lost
Tulsa,
Wyoming.
and then you have a couple decent wins at the end. I think. Okay, yeah. I mean, we'll figure out where to
I
put in
think-
Coastal, but I think it's pretty
Yeah,
obvious.
Coastal might be
This
the
is pretty
worst.
good.
No?
This is a kind of good resume, especially towards the end. Like multiple good wins, 4 good wins rattled off right at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's a
a lot
pretty
of the
good
common
schedule.
opponents, Hawaii has a lot of common opponents, and UTSA lost to Wyoming and UNLV, whereas Hawaii beat both of them.
No,
least once.
Hawaii
No,
lost to
Hawaii
UNLV.
lost to UNLV.
Oh,
they,
right.
they won
sorry.
1 of 2 against Wyoming. I would
That's
I
what
would
it
put
was.
Hawaii above UTSA, and then
Yeah.
I would go probably Ohio, Notre Dame, and then the question just becomes where do we put Coastal?
Coastal's record looking
Now,
like.
let's look at Coastal.
So Coastal's kind of like UTSA. Terrible start. The win over
Lost
USC
Army.
turned out not to be anything. The loss to West Virginia. They lost to UNC, but then they rattled off 3 straight wins to get to here. So
Yeah.
there's no marquee
they-
win.
Again, also that loss to Army as well.
Yeah.
I'm
lost
Coastal
to-
might be
I'm
last.
fine with Coastal as the last team in. I think they have the most losses out of anybody.
So it'd be what? So from the bottom, it would be Coastal, Ohio, Notre Dame.
Damn. In
No,
all
No,
but
I
one
have
loss.
Ohio above Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I.
Jesus
yeah, that's
Christ,
what I
dude.
thought
In
when
all
we
but
had it,
one loss, Coastal got blown out.
Okay, so Hawaii,
and then
UTSA,
UTSA above Hawaii.
yeah, and then Ohio, Notre Dame, and then Coastal. Okay, so we have our auto bids ranked 1 through 11. They don't have to be 1 through 11 or anywhere close to that in the top 25. So now we need to figure out who are going to be our at-large teams. So let me scroll back up. So according to this sheet, it would be Iowa State, Minnesota, Miami, with the first team out, Western Kentucky and Tennessee and Army still in there. So once again, take this with a grain of salt. The beauty of this sheet isn't necessarily the resume rankings. It's more so the quad visualizing their schedule and auto doing this for us. So where do you guys want to start? You want to start with Iowa State
I
probably?
kind of
Iowa State.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Iowa State, but I also kind of want to talk about Minnesota a little bit because Minnesota has
Yes.
an 0-3 Tier 1 record.
Yeah.
0-3 tier 1,
So,
4 tier
it
2.
feels like Minnesota is the 17th best team in the country. So here's Iowa State's record. So win versus Oklahoma turned out to not be that great. They did lose to Army, but they beat Iowa, who's in the field. They beat Baylor, who's in the field, but then they lost to Baylor, so that kind of a wash. Texas Tech victory, that's huge. That's a 40-point win. Minnesota, they beat by 30. So yeah, they in that matchup they have to be above Minnesota. I mean, they're dome
That
teams
Kansas
left and
loss
right.
is so brutal, man. It's
Yeah,
so
1
brutal.
point, 1
It's
point
it's
Sin
still
loss.
yeah,
It's
it's a
still a
loss.
7-win team.
Yeah,
I'm not
on
like
the
saying
road.
it's a horrible loss. It's just a brutal one to have.
Yeah, on the road. I mean, so the funny thing is, if you look at this, Baylor, they won by 8, they lost by 11, almost the exact same score reversed. So I mean, this is a great resume. So I feel like I don't have any gripes. The important note is that they lost to Army, but they beat Minnesota. Now, I don't think Army has any chance, in my personal opinion.
No, I think they played themselves
No,
out of it, dude.
Yeah.
In all
4
honesty,
losses is-
Yeah.
So Big Ten. So also another team in this battle here is, I know they're not ranked high, is Nebraska. They're 10-2.
can we
They're
see their
ranked-
schedule?
Yeah.
They lost to Michigan State though.
It's still we
So
have
let's
teams that
look
lose
at
to
let's
bad
look at
losses.
Minnesota first, because you guys want to see Minnesota. The win at Penn State. They have an Ohio win who's in the field. They lost to Nebraska, who has more wins than them. They beat Michigan, but lost to Iowa State. They lost to Iowa, who's in the field.
Well, doesn't that technically mean they're out because they already lost to Nebraska, who's a similar team that we're talking about for the at-large?
Well, we got to look
Pretty
at their
much.
record to make sure they're a. I mean, remember, we have 3 at-larges, so you could technically have Minnesota the last team in.
To be honest with you, it feels like this is the last team in we're talking about for the at-larges.
Well, we have 3. So here's
LSU.
Nebraska. A lot worse of a schedule, I would say. Let me littered with 4-win teams. But Penn State, similar to Minnesota, they do have the win. They beat the Illini on the road. OT versus Mizzou. That doesn't look great. But
Never
lost
mind, I don't
Iowa.
like the schedule at all.
I mean, where's
Yeah,
the
it's
win?
not
The
great.
best win is Minnesota. I get that. And Penn State. And Illinois. I mean, there's wins.
Even with a head-to-head loss for Minnesota, like I feel like Minnesota still has a better resume.
So, I mean, that's
Yeah,
why
in all
on
honesty.
here, that's why on here you see Minnesota 0-3 in Tier 1, but they're 4-0 in Tier 2. No Tier 3
No,
games,
I know. It's
and
just
then 5-0.
we have always held head-to-head
Nebraska.
as like one of the
Yeah.
highest like things for playoff committees.
No,
So it's
I agree.
What does Western Kentucky look like?
I
I mean, 1 loss for Western Kentucky. They should get a look for sure.
I'm just in the boat that Minnesota, even with the loss to Nebraska, should be in over.
Remember, there's
because of
only
just
2
from the resume.
one-loss teams in the country. It's these 2. No undefeateds. So,
I don't want.
but who did they beat is the question. LA Tech on the road. That's
LA
pretty
Tech.
decent. That would have held more weight had they beat UTSA.
Outside of that, not much.
Yeah, it's literally
Yeah.
just 6-6 teams. There's not one team better. And then the 3-point loss though to number
God.
2 on the road. That does hold
I-
weight. I mean, they did everything they are supposed to except beating our number 2 team on the road.
I just
what I mean?
we're talking about a G5 team though, with the only weight that they have for their resume is a loss.
To another
Well,
G5 team.
okay.
Like
Do
in
they
all
have
honesty,
any
The Sun Belt is
0-1,
also a
1-2?
complete dookie.
Yeah, they played a total of 2 games in Tier 2 and above, and they lost their only Tier 1 game.
And their opponent win-loss is sub 500. So that's why they dropped down a bit. They really needed that LA Tech win. Because that could have
Yeah,
been a Tier 1 victory.
the only other team even close to that is even close to their rank, is up below 500 is Ohio State and like Nebraska, and neither of those teams are making it most likely.
Okay, so a couple other teams that we need to check out. Let's check out Miami. Because they quietly, the coaches poll hasn't liked them. But 10-2, let me pull it up here. Navy. So they beat Florida State. So I think that practically eliminates Florida State with the head-to-head, because
That
Florida
Virginia
State
loss
also
is-
has another loss. Loss to Georgia Tech. And where's the other loss?
That's-
Yeah, Virginia's not great.
Virginia.
But they did beat East Carolina and Florida, 2 decent wins at the end of the year. UCF. I mean, this isn't a terrible resume. I don't know if this gets you into the playoff, though.
Problem is what does right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
Florida's-
FSU lost to
Seems-
Cincy, Miami, and Georgia Tech. Like
I
they don't have
think-
any like good wins. I mean, they're good wins,
They've
but
got
they're
a
not like
couple,
big wins
but-
you need.
I just think the head-to-head loss to Miami just takes them out of contention.
for a playoff for sure. Okay, next. The only other, we already looked at Iowa State. Let me see. Big Ten, was there anybody else? I mean, no, 9-4. These guys are kind of toast. Oregon we have to look at.
Ah. Wait,
I
what
mean,
about Stanford?
Yeah, we can look at them too. So they beat Kansas, which Iowa State did not. They beat Oklahoma. UCLA on the road. Lost to Washington. Lost to BYU. Now, the BYU loss, you really gotta take that with a grain of salt. 5 overtimes is a sliver. An Oregon State win.
But also the only great team they played, they got blown out.
Yeah, they have
Like,
a win versus Kansas, Oklahoma, and UCLA. And unfortunately, Oklahoma is not the weight that they wanted. UCLA neither. Yeah, I don't know if
think
that gets you
that's the
in.
problem. There's not a lot of these at-large teams with a real, like, genuinely competitive resume.
This is the same case as what fucked Arizona back in like season 13. It's just like it's not a bad resume, but it's like there's no meat on the bones here.
talk
Yeah.
about
I mean,
getting
your best
flashbacks.
win is Washington, who's the #1 team. They have a win over them, right? But they also lost to them by 2. Also lost to UCLA on the road in OT. They do have a win over Notre Dame, Fresno, Arizona, BYU. They lost to. Oh yeah.
So I
So-
don't think that puts them over Oregon.
No, I mean, well,
But I don't think Oregon gets them in either.
I think you kind of have to put Stanford over Oregon. They have both lost to UCLA. Or no,
No,
UCLA.
Oregon did-
No, Oregon
yeah.
beat
Oregon
UCLA.
They
beat
both lost to
UCLA.
BYU, but Stanford has a win over Washington. And
Yeah, that is.
this result.
That's
is
the
not-
biggest. That's the best team in the country, dude.
Yeah, that's a giant. Yeah, Washington.
So it's-
Washington win might.
You
be-
can't have a better win.
Yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
we have Stanford over Oregon. Now the only other team we need to check is Tennessee. Tennessee
Lost to
lost
Florida.
to Florida.
Lost to
They
Auburn
did
in
beat
OT.
Southern Miss. Lost to Auburn in OT.
Not bad losses.
They
No,
had-
it's good losses.
Look
They-
at
and
the
they
wins,
absolutely
bro.
just-
Look where. Where's the wins?
Okay, but also-
Southern Miss is still Southern Miss is a massive win.
They're also Southern Miss
By
is number
2
2.
scores as
BYU
well.
also 37-point win over BYU, 14-point win over Rutgers.
So I
mean,
think
that's not-
that BYU win gets them
Yeah.
above
Okay, well,
Oregon and
does
Stanford.
anybody with a similar record have as bad as a loss as Florida? That's the question.
Yes,
mean,
probably.
BYU is it
No,
no?
Miami beat Florida.
As bad of a
Miami
loss to Florida, yeah,
Miami
Nebraska
lost
has
to
Michigan State
Virginia.
lost.
Oh yeah, Nebraska losing to Michigan State. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
And
also
Miami
Miami
lost to
losing.
Virginia.
So okay, if we
Losing to
go back to the
Virginia.
resume rankers, just based on what we saw just now, it's kind of like Nebraska's bottom team that we could consider here. I mean,
BYU's that high? Really? Wow.
so
I mean, they did play.
I'm
5
okay
teams.
locking in Iowa State. I think they deserve a spot.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think
I
I don't
think-
think anybody's gonna beat Iowa State.
I think we got to make a decision on Western Kentucky if they're just in or out.
Out.
I mean, like the one, like it's the same thing with Oregon. Like the one great team they played, they lost. It's like, and other than that, they played a bunch of meh teams.
But so you also put in the perspective is the teams can't pick their schedules, and they did everything they're supposed to, minus a field goal, technically, right? Whereas you
Teams
got
kind of can pick.
where you got teams you're competing with, Minnesota gets blown out by Iowa State. They lost on a fluke to Nebraska, or Tennessee loses to Florida. There's more leeway, which is fine. Even though Western Kentucky has more wins, I'm fine leaving them out. It's just we need to.
Just that they don't have a win that really stands out. Like they played 2 games over teams that ended up 500 or that ended up better than 500. It's
Yeah.
It is rough. That's so rough.
as much as if they had beaten Southern Miss, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Now, if you look, I don't know what the power ranking means, but they're the second best team in terms of power. But that's probably just wins.
I have a hard time rewarding a team where the only like I said, the only weight on their resume is a loss. Like
No, I'm
that's
fine leaving them out. Yeah. Because their best win is Army.
which is a bit of a fall off.
Yeah. Okay.
So do we add Stanford then?
That seems yucky. I
Yeah,
think
I
mean, who else do we
Tennessee-
have?
I think Tennessee is
Tennessee with the
best
BYU win is
resume
above
of the
them.
bunch.
I mean, we have 2 spots left though, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if we have
2
Iowa
spots
State in, we have 2 more spots. I think Pac-12 probably out because Tennessee gatekeeps them
Yeah.
with that BYU throttling.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's
So the question is,
it
I mean, if we base it on what, like, we had Pac-12 is the best, but after that, we had ACC just over the Big Ten in terms of champ. Does it come down to Miami, Minnesota, or Minnesota versus Nebraska?
I don't think Miami beats Minnesota. I think Miami's out of the conversation, to be completely honest with you. The
that
Virginia
Virginia
loss
loss?
is just, it's too much to me.
It is a tier 4. They're the
Yeah.
only team outside Nebraska. So Nebraska and Miami are the only 2 teams we're considering with tier 4 losses.
Yeah, no, I feel like that just
So
knocks
that
those guys out.
Eliminates them. Because Virginia,
Yeah.
Michigan State, not very good. Okay.
But the problem is that Nebraska is a straight win over Minnesota. I get it was on a fluke, but they still have the outright win.
Right, and I normally agree that head-to-head is like the biggest and most important thing. I just think the resume is so vastly different that it actually does make it a big enough difference to overcome a head-to-head fluke.
I mean, Nebraska, Michigan. Now, these big losses, like, you can't erase the loss to Iowa State, 30 points. You can't erase, like, 7.
No.
I mean, on the road, losing on a fine. Remember this game, it was a Hail Mary, like 80-yarder that they lost.
Hail Mary to Kira Strieger,
they
then Hail
play-
Mary.
they
Yeah,
to,
but we're also talking
or-
about a team that all their losses are to either playoff teams or a fringe playoff team compared to a team that lost to a non-bowl eligible team.
Yeah, they
By
lost
10
to
points.
Iowa by more.
Yeah.
And then they lost by 10 to Michigan State. And an overtime game against Mizzou.
and
Another 4.
Colorado.
It's just there's 4 teams that are... Yeah, there's multiple overtimes in here. They're 64 and 70 opponent schedule versus Minnesota, who's 80 and 56.
Dude, that's so
I mean,
insanely
but
different.
I mean, are we making the same argument for Western Kentucky? Like, I mean, sorry, for Minnesota. Like, you can say like Minnesota's only weight they have is pretty much losing, right?
No,
I
I
mean,
mean,
they have good wins.
They're dominating
Yeah.
tier 2. That's their calling card. But is dominating tier 2, which is Penn State, Ohio, Michigan now, and Illinois.
probably.
Those are their 4 tier 2 wins. Is that playoff worthy for an at-large? I don't know. But you also see that in 2 of these games that they lost to Tier 1 teams, they were competitive on the road. It's just one game.
But then
the
they
outlier.
also got blown out.
Yeah.
Problem is,
I
they've
mean,
also all played all their really good teams on the road.
well, the question,
Yeah.
those are on the road. The question, though, is, like, the only other team to consider that, because we have 2 spots. We have Iowa State in right now, Minnesota, and then either Tennessee or Western Kentucky or Florida State. Like,
I
Those
think
are-
Tennessee clears all of them
yeah,
by a
yeah.
mile.
Tennessee should be in.
I think your final 3 are probably Tennessee and Minnesota. I'm fine putting Minnesota as last at-large team in.
I already know Minnesota is going to be the
punish 'em?
most hated fucking pick from the community. dude.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
they're gonna see Minnesota versus Western Kentucky is the big
I
issue.
don't
let
mean
it let it
Not
just be
versus
put on the
Nebraska.
record.
Also,
Let
I
it
don't
just
mean
be
to
put on the
throw,
record.
I guess
think it
another
should be West Kentucky.
another name in the hat, but I kind of noticed something. Army has the best like opponent win-loss record out of that
Yeah.
entire sheet.
I mean, that's why the Algos love them. We haven't looked at them yet because there's no aura here. So they've played a very tough schedule. Southern Miss, they lost by
Lost to
1.
Miss.
They beat Iowa State, lost to Ohio State, beat Coastal, beat
Hawaii.
Hawaii, beat BYU, beat Charlotte, lost to Notre Dame.
Honestly,
Like,
beat
do you
yeah,
want
that's
to...
actually
Yo,
I might take
what?
them over what?
That's
I take them over Minnesota right now.
conference champions. the
Are we
team that
really
have
putting
at
2
large,
independents in?
BYU.
I
Here's
mean,
the
they
thing,
deserve-
You kind of have to put Army in.
The
They
problem is
beat
the
Iowa
thing is-
State.
Yeah.
Like-
The
So
win
they've
over Iowa
beaten-
State against
They've beaten
Minnesota
And then they're-
gets blown out by
and then their
30.
3 losses are all to top 25 teams.
And it was a
Like,
1-point loss to Southern Miss, dude. Like that's.
And it was, I
Ohio
mean,
State
the
at
only
home.
iffy part about this is losing by 14 to Ohio State, but then you have a blowout against Iowa
Hello.
State
Okay.
and then blowout against Coastal.
Well, I mean, they did finish
So
out with a
icky.
barely
but they
squeaking
also
by
beat
Navy.
BYU. They also beat BYU as well.
That's
Oh, true.
That's
On the
another
road
pain
by
point.
like 22.
They beat the shit out of
So,
BYU.
87
Yeah, that was like a
and 40.
22-point win.
They're 1-1, tier 1, 3-2, tier 2, and then they got it done in the other games. I mean, when you
The thing is
combine it
that
with
Iowa-
Minnesota, for instance, it's still 4-3, so that's on tier. When you combine it with Iowa State is 4-2 versus these teams. I mean, that makes sense. So then do you put Army above Iowa State because they beat them?
No.
It's
Yeah,
16
you might
points.
have to.
It's
You
16
kind of have
points.
to.
By 16 points, you might have to.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, so
that's
do
that's
we-
not an option.
Yeah, so are we taking out Minnesota then?
Well, then
I think
I
so.
think
Yeah,
that
I
I
think
think
the-
the
I think the
conversation
blowout.
becomes Minnesota or Tennessee.
I think you have to go Tennessee
I'd
there
Tennessee.
because of their resume.
I think.
So
All right,
what-
so we have
Tennessee 1-1, 1-1. So they don't have as many games versus the top.
Yeah, but didn't they beat their conference champ?
Let's just compare them one more time
no, they
before
lost
we make
Auburn.
a decision.
I'm pretty sure.
Mm.
Dude, that's such an icky team to put in. Army? Ugh.
But the schedule.
What, you
doesn't
don't
lie.
support our troops? You don't support our troops?
Okay, relax.
That's the thing. This as much as putting in Army is like a little bit of an oralist team. The schedule in comparison to a lot of the at-large teams that we're looking at, that's easily the best one. And their win over Iowa State and wins over Iowa State, BYU, that's a lot of tiebreakers on a lot of other teams.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
man.
think
I'm
we
looking
have
at a
to-
2-win team, a 4-win team, a 1-win team, a 2-win team. Like,
But
Yeah,
then you also
yeah.
have you also have a loss in OT to Auburn, a 4-point loss to Florida, and this was when Florida was good too. I think they were one loss at this point to Washington by like a point. So
it's really tough to me seeing 4 or 3 or 4
thing is,
teams
the
with 2 or
losses are
less wins.
close. If you want to take a sore thumb, they have one more loss, and they have a big loss to Iowa State.
Yeah,
Mm,
because
it's
I
gonna
mean
be,
they also beat Southern Miss by 14.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think you have to go Tennessee here.
yeah,
All right. So okay.
pizza.
So in
You just took
terms
Rick out
of
of the playoff.
at large, we have Iowa State, Tennessee, and Army in. Now, where do we rank them in terms of the 14?
Army. I mean, so if we're doing Army above Iowa State and Tennessee, we have to put them above them in the actual seating. So
Are we putting them above?
I don't know. I was just posing the question. I mean, they played
No, yeah,
one
'cause I
more.
think
Iowa State plays one more game.
Yeah, but whooping up Iowa State like Army did, you have to have them above Iowa State.
yeah,
but I also think those early season they're different teams now.
Yeah, you can play the early season card.
I mean, you can. That's a fair card to play. It's 2-score win over them. I feel like that's hard to
I mean, you
just.
also say that about Army now.
Well, I
Because
I
like
also think for Army it's a severely front-loaded schedule because then they get into the independent games, and so sure they're on like a what is that 9-1 streak, or 8-1 streak of wins, but there's no quality since the Charlotte win.
I mean,
But that's the thing. The quality in their games is all, but it's 7 straight like quality games.
Well, I think recency bias is a fair point to make here. I would think putting Army above Iowa State right now is weird.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
but-
I fully agree with that.
but looking back on it, like Army looks better because they have the
Well,
blowout
sure,
win,
but
and that
it's
was
because
at
they're
Iowa
in-
State too. That
yeah.
Iowa State was at home for that too.
That was like week 2 though.
That was week 2.
In
That just
terms of
seems
ranking
more
them, like
like a
I'm
bit of a-
fine putting Tennessee as last team in just because the schedule's just not amazing.
Honestly, yeah, I completely
Tennessee,
agree.
honestly, I mean, but Coastal. Okay,
so like
but
what
Coastal's,
Tennessee at
I
like
think Coastal's worse
13
than
or
Tennessee.
12?
Well, no, not in terms of seeding. Seeding's completely different. I'm just ranking the 3 at-large teams. I would go Iowa State, Army, Tennessee, personally.
I agree.
I agree with
I can
that.
go with that.
Okay, so ISU, and then Army, and then Tennessee. Okay, so now let's just go one by one, and we'll seed them based on where we had them. So, Washington, number 1. Nobody else can be there. Southern Miss, number 2. Nobody can be there. Okay, Georgia Tech or Iowa State? I think we're all set
Georgia
on
Tech.
Georgia Tech because
Georgia
they're a
Tech.
conference champ. Let me
Mhm.
just pull up this. Okay. Do we have Georgia, or sorry, do you want Iowa or Iowa State? And I think this is where that Cyhawk game comes in.
Iowa State.
Iowa
Yeah.
got throttled.
Yeah,
in
but then
that
we
game.
have Baylor. Do you want Baylor being below Iowa State?
No,
I
mean-
honestly,
I think that's
this could be a
fair.
good this could be a good spot for Baylor. In all honesty.
I don't think
I mean,
you
that put
propel
Baylor at
Baylor
the
because
4
they
seed.
split. These guys split, so it's fair to
They
put
did
Iowa
split.
State way up here. Baylor was not going to be a playoff team. Iowa State was pretty much the entire season a playoff team. So if you put Iowa State 4, then we have Iowa. Or no, then it goes to Iowa or Army.
Iowa, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be Army at the 5 seed, right?
No, we gotta make this.
They better resume than Iowa.
I don't think so.
Probably,
I
technically,
put
Army
Iowa.
has a better, but I think the Big Ten championship probably trumps it slightly.
All right, so
Yeah.
it'd be Iowa. So it'd be Iowa State 4, Iowa 5, Army 6. Baylor
Well,
7.
you would
then?
then it's Baylor or Army. That's the next.
Yeah,
decision
but
to
I
make.
mean,
I think
are we
once
are we
again,
gonna hold it against Army for not having a conference championship game? I mean,
I
It's
think
part
we
of being
should. I think
independent.
we should.
It's part of being an independent.
Like
that
easier
we-
path to the
we,
playoff. Yeah.
That's why we put Ohio above Notre Dame.
Yeah. So I guess
the problem
we put
is,
Baylor.
do we put Army over Notre Dame because Notre Dame?
Yeah, I
that's
think
head
so.
to head,
Yes.
too.
Yeah, I mean, being an at-large, I feel like because there's going to be teams that are like UTSA and
Yeah,
Hawaii.
you would
Like,
have to
again,
put
they're
it would
above
that would
Notre
make
Dame.
Army be such a bottom seeded team because a bunch of teams already have to be above Notre Dame.
Yeah, like these at-large teams are probably going to be like top 8 teams. So Baylor, like I'm fine going Army because Army has
We
the
also have to think about seeding about who would play who.
yeah. So that's what we're going to figure out. So let's just go through it once and then we'll figure out the seedings.
We can
So
All right,
six,
if we need to.
6 Army over Baylor, and then we put Baylor 7.
I thought we were doing Baylor 6, Army 7.
I'm fine with that. It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean-
with that too.
Oh yeah, because of the championship. Yeah.
Yeah,
Extra
that's-
game.
Yeah, that's
Baylor,
what I thought we
and
were doing.
then Army. Okay, and then do you go Tennessee or do you go?
Can't go Tennessee over Auburn because Auburn.
Or
beat
sorry,
them.
we had Auburn above Baylor, so Auburn would be 6.
Yeah.
Auburn's 6, Baylor 7, Army 8.
Baylor 7. Okay, that makes a little more sense. And then Army at 8, and then I think 9 it would be Tennessee because then the next
Tennessee.
team we're comparing is Hawaii.
And then I think it's just straight Hawaii, UTSA, Ohio, Notre Dame, Coastal.
Hawaii, and then let me see. 8 is UTSA. 12 would be 8, 9
Oh.
Ohio. Notre Dame, and then 14 would be Coastal Carolina. Okay, so right now, in your top left quadrant, which we gotta figure out our where they're going. So Washington's the closest to the Fiesta Bowl.
Hold on.
So that would mean
Do you
the
have, like, a
rows would be
picture
on
of
the left
bracket?
side. Not that I'm filling in. So it'd be Washington facing the winner of Army, Tennessee. So that's fine because you have Pac-12, SEC, Independent. Now the bottom left, or sorry, the top right of the bracket we'll do next. Southern Miss, which Southern Miss is Mississippi closer to the Peach Bowl or the Sugar?
Sugar.
Mm.
Because
Where'd
New
be the
Orleans.
peach?
Can somebody look
No,
it up? Are
'cause
they closer?
Wait, where is the peach?
It's the
Atlanta.
Sugar Bowl's in
Atlanta.
New Orleans.
New
Peach,
Orleans
Peach
or
is in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, Peach is
New
in
Orleans.
Sugar Bowl is at the Superdome.
Yeah, so
Hattiesburg
Southern
is
Miss,
Hattiesburg is like right there.
Yeah, Mississippi
so-
borders Louisiana.
Yeah.
Hattiesburg is
Yeah.
like less than 100 miles from
Okay.
New Orleans.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this would be the Sugar then. So Southern Miss will face the winner of Baylor, Hawaii. So you got Mountain West, you've got Sunbelt, and you've got Big 12. That's perfect. Bottom right is Georgia Tech, which would get Atlanta. They'd get Peach.
They get Peach.
So
Yes.
Georgia Tech would face would face UTSA in the first round, and then you'd have Auburn. Or sorry, hold on, I messed this up. 13.
Is it Georgia Tech on a bye?
No,
No.
14 teams,
There's-
No.
only 2 buys. So this is actually reversed here because 3 gets the 14 seed, right? So
Also,
Yeah, three gets the 14.
does Washington get the Rose Bowl then?
6, 11. So yeah, the Rose Bowl's on the left side. Orange is on the right.
Yeah.
So Georgia Tech would face Coastal, the 14 seed. And then Auburn would face UTSA. So that is Conference USA, SEC, ACC, and American. So that's fine. And then the bottom left would be Cotton Bowl. And then you would have Iowa State would be facing Notre Dame. And then Iowa would face Ohio. So that's fine
Yeah,
as well. 'cause
future
you got Big
potential
12 and
potential Cyhawk. Yeah, we have potential Cyhawk.
and the,
Yeah.
and the Cotton, yeah. So I think that's fair. Now
Yeah.
we got to make a top 25. So I think 1 through 9 is pretty much set in stone with our ratings. I think once we get to Hawaii, that's where teams start to drop down, if that makes any
Yes.
sense. So 1's Washington, 2 Southern Miss, 3 Georgia Tech, 4 Iowa State, 5 would be Iowa, 6 would be Auburn. I'm gonna put this back on the screen.
Would
7.
Minnesota be 10 then?
7 would be Baylor. 8 Army. 9 is Tennessee. So yeah, so then we would probably have quite a few teams before we consider Hawaii, in my opinion. So I think this is where we would probably go. I think Minnesota and Western Kentucky are the first 2 out because that's who we talked about the most heavily.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I put
Minnesota for sure.
Yeah, Minnesota ahead, and then Western
Well,
Kentucky.
wouldn't you
11.
put Western Kentucky ahead of Minnesota here for the rankings just because?
Yeah, if you want to. I mean,
Just to reward the wins.
Yeah, at
first
that
team
point,
out.
I feel like here's
Because they'll get an Outback Bowl, which is the best possible thing for a CPU team.
yeah.
It's not the playoff. So
Yeah,
I'm
because
fine
it's
with
really just deciding who goes after Rick. Because who's
Yeah,
going to
so
face him in the citrus.
that. Yeah, so Minnesota
10.
11. So the next team, the next user we rank is going to be in the citrus with him. So, teams left, and it can't be same conference.
It's going to be Zach. It's
So we
Nebraska.
can be. No, we can't do that.
No.
I mean,
I know, but
we
like-
can rank them
I
that
mean,
way,
what about
but-
Oregon? What about Oregon?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, JJ.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, well, is Stanford above Oregon though in the
Yes.
rankings?
Yeah, but yes,
Yes,
Stanford
so,
over Oregon.
Yeah, so that would be the Outback
Stanford.
Bowl then, would be Stanford, West Kentucky, and then Oregon would be 13, playing Minnesota in the citrus.
Okay, so we
that
want to
sound good?
rank Stanford 12, Oregon 13.
Because we had West Kentucky over Oregon in the top 25 last week, anyways.
Yeah,
And
that's
Stanford.
And then
I
would
know,
we
but
put-
I'm just.
And then what about Miami here? Or would we drop them further because the Virginia loss?
But
Oh,
well,
FSU
Miami is
would
a
make that
user.
too.
Miami's a user.
a user. I would put Nebraska above Miami just because the wins are better for Nebraska, and they both have that tier 4 loss. So I would just put them right in front of each other.
Yeah, so Nebraska above Miami, and then, but what about Florida State?
I mean, I would probably put Nebraska and then Miami. Did Miami beat? Let me just quickly check.
Miami did not
Miami
beat Georgia
beat
Tech.
Florida State, so that's fine. So let's do Nebraska
Yeah.
at 14, and then Miami at 15, and then 16 would be FSU.
Works for me.
And then is there anybody we're missing here at the top? We would
Not at the. I mean,
Minnesota,
not at the
Miami,
top, but-
Western, Army, Tennessee, Florida, Baylor, Stanford, Oregon. Okay, and then this is
I mean,
kind
what
of
about
the cutoff
Michigan?
here.
FM, can you fill in? Because I am lost right now.
yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
Don't pay attention to the Hawaii and UTSA ones.
So
just kind of
everybody's
placeholders.
ranked above Florida here. So just don't pay attention to Florida State. So Florida and below is
So what
where
about-
we're looking at now.
What about Penn State? Who have they? I mean, Penn State.
Well, I think now this is where we probably rank Hawaii, 17,
That seems about right to me.
because I mean we have to rank the rest of these teams in the top 25. So
Holy shit, dude!
Oh.
My win-loss is crazy. What the hell?
I think Coastal Carolina is definitely number 25. Like, I think there's
Yeah.
little
I mean
disagreement.
they're the
about
last
that.
team in. So that's fine. Yeah, we can work backwards a little bit. I mean, do you have Notre Dame 24? I mean, they don't have like a terrible resume.
I mean,
So-
who else have they beat? Like,
So we have Nebraska up there. So
I mean,
then we
Notre Dame
got-
does have a win over Army. So did we win?
Well, it's more like who are we bumping out of the top 25 for, like
Coastal.
Coastal and like UTSA?
Yeah, this might be where looking at the user rankings might help us a little bit because
Because like, are we bumping out Texas Tech? And
I think Texas
Sharp-
Tech
I mean,
might have been a little under.
okay, what does LSU look like?
They're 9-4. 80-65, 1-4 versus tier 1 and 2, and then they're undefeated versus 3 and 4. So they're back half of tier 2, which would
And
be
then
fringe
Texas
rank.
Tech is 2-3 against tier 1 and 2.
They have one rough loss.
And
I mean,
then
I think
6-1.
so. If we're looking at
I think
last week's top 25, I think you.
I mean, Texas
knock
Tech also
out-
beat number 3 Georgia Tech.
You
so-
knock out LA Tech and Charlotte for sure.
Yeah.
We'll find. I feel like you find a ranking for Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, LSU, and Texas Tech. I think that's pretty
Michigan.
fair.
So
I
you
mean, that's
said
kind of where we're at.
Michigan.
I'm not
So
ranking
you said
Florida.
Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas Tech. Well, LSU
Yeah.
too, but I mean,
Michigan beat both these teams, so even though they're way down here, I still think you put them above these two.
yeah. So we're gonna have to drop 2 of those teams
No, we're not.
at least.
I mean, okay, so 17 is going to be Hawaii. Let's just
Yeah.
put them in.
Ooh.
And then, so we still have to rank 3 more teams for sure. We have to rank UTSA, Ohio, and Notre Dame, since we have Coastal at 25.
Rank us, you cowards.
So I think 18 should be Michigan.
I mean, who has
Yeah.
LSU beat? I mean, who did LSU beat those tier 2?
Let me go
Florida?
check.
I think it was probably Florida. No. Because Florida's
So
1-0 against tier 2
LSU
teams.
beat Texas, then they beat Bama, and they beat Tulane. So Tulane's probably their tier 2 team.
I don't think they are.
Shaking my head.
It's Texas.
It's Texas.
Yeah.
That's an 8-4 team. LSU can go at the back half. So yeah, 18 Michigan.
To be
that's
honest,
pretty
I
obvious.
think I think the rest of our Ford auto bids kind of fill out the bottom 4 here.
Well,
Sure.
no, because, like, it's hard with, like, Charlotte. Like,
I
there's
don't
still,
think
like,
you rank Charlotte.
I don't think Charlotte makes
well,
it
I mean,
either.
but, like, so, like, they're one of the 2 that's going to get dropped, is what you're saying? Like,
Yeah, I think them and LA Tech for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 3 more teams. So I think you rank Ohio State. I think you rank Penn State. And then I think you probably either
well,
rank
hold on.
Texas Tech or you rank BYU.
Hold on. Okay, but Ohio State's opponent win percentage is under 500.
Oof.
So, like, are we sure we want to do that?
I mean, who won the head-to-head here?
Head to head, they beat Penn State, I think.
No, they won in
Did they
overtime. Penn State won in overtime. So
yeah,
Ohio
so
State,
they lost to Michigan and Penn State.
they lost
God,
to
dude,
Iowa,
Penn State's
State,
0-2
and
in tier
Michigan.
1.
Those are their only losses. So here's Ohio
But
State. I
then
think that's
if
just
it's
still
between,
rankable. They beat Army.
Yeah, they did beat
between
Army.
Tech and BYU, then it's definitely
I mean,
Tech.
I think we have to rank Ohio State to save our pick for
Army pick.
Army. Yeah. I mean,
God,
I'm fine.
feeling like
I'm
a
fine
real
going on
playoff.
a Big Ten run here. Penn State, then Ohio State. I think that's pretty cut and dry. Like I
Yeah,
think
Penn State
following the
definitely has to be
resume
above
here,
Ohio State.
Unless we like sandwich them with like who do we have left from
UTSA,
like an Ohio or
Notre Dame,
like
Coastal.
No,
UTSA
UTSA
above
has
like,
to
Penn State?
UTSA has to be the next auto bid because we rank them above Ohio,
Yeah,
Notre Dame, and Coastal.
UTSA's next.
Like
But I think you go.
like above like Penn State.
So I think the
I
last
don't
3 is going to be Ohio, Notre Dame, and then Coastal. I don't see anybody above them. Then I,
I
think.
agree with that.
Then I. so I
UTSA
think
then Tech.
what I would think is we do Penn State, Ohio State,
Ohio
then
State,
you do UTSA, then you pick between BYU and Texas Tech, and then you pick Ohio, Notre Dame.
Ohio.
What about Michigan?
I think it's Texas Tech over BYU 100% though.
Yeah, but I mean, so BYU. What's BYU's
All right,
resume
let me
again?
pencil this in, and then we'll
It's
look at those two.
They
Penn State.
beat both
UTSA, woo!
Stanford and Oregon.
Okay, so let's compare those two. Because we have been talking about BYU a ton.
I think we
here
do
as well.
Texas Tech here just because they beat number 3 Georgia Tech
So
here.
lost to Army, lost to Arizona, lost to Tennessee, lost to Washington, but beat Oregon and beat Stanford. Couple
But
big
those two
wins there.
They
What did
seem,
Texas Tech even do?
They beat Georgia
Bums.
Tech. I know that much.
Georgia Tech on the road, who's our number 3
Lost
team.
by 40 to Iowa State.
Yeah, got kind of
Lost by 5
by
to
a
Baylor.
couple.
Lost by 24 to OU.
Yeah, BYU should be ranked.
Yeah, I think we would be. I'm sorry, pizza.
I'm gonna kill myself. It's fine.
Hey, man, you want me to come watch?
I'll take.
This is
number
going on
I'll take number
YouTube.
26 with pride.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. The 5
So,
overtime
do we put-
wins.
So do we put BYU over 22 at 22? I mean,
Okay,
and then
so
who do
let's
we put at
just.
21? Michigan?
I put UTSA. So
I
let
thought
me
we had
just go
UTSA
back
at 20.
through.
The Michigan
No.
is at 18.
Let me go
That's-
back
okay,
through
yeah,
what
that's what
we
it was.
have, and then we can make a change. 1 Washington, 2 Southern Miss, 3 Georgia Tech, 4 Iowa State, 5 Iowa, 6 Auburn, 7 Baylor, 8 Army, 9 Tennessee, 10 Western Kentucky, 11 Minnesota, 12 Stanford, 13 Oregon, 14 Nebraska, 15 Miami, 16 Florida State, 17 Hawaii, 18 Michigan, 19 Penn State, 20 Ohio State, 21 UTSA, 22 BYU, 23 Ohio, 24 Notre Dame, 25 Colgate.
Sorry, nothing.
Any changes?
Why does it?
I like it.
All right, and then just looking at the playoff. My God, these are going to be some. Bryce Spears is going to take down Georgia Tech. You heard it here first. Okay, so that's going to end the VOD. I have to get all the in-game rankings and stuff. So don't leak it or whatever. I'll post them probably in the next 30 minutes.
Recruits.
And then, yeah, recruits will follow.
Recruits.